Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Analytical Line. I'm Josh Davis. Thank you all for joining me. Got another fantastic show today. Going to talk about the playoffs, obviously, some other bowl games, got some PSU football updates. Going to talk about the basketball losses to Indiana and Michigan State, and then Penn State plays Pitt and Hershey next Sunday. So a lot of good stuff to talk about on the show today. It's almost Christmas break. It's finals week here at Penn State, finishing things up. But that also means it's the thick of bowl season as the playoffs start. We have some big first-round games. Will there be any upset bids, or will the favorites just take the cake? That's the question I'm going to be answering on today's show, or at least trying to answer. And I'll talk about each game in a little bit of detail. Let's start things off. Number 9, Alabama at number 8, Oklahoma. The Sooners just beat Bama in Tuscaloosa on November 15th, right? That's the thing here is we got a couple of rematches in this first round. The Oklahoma offense struggled in that game, with John Mateer going just 15 for 23 passing for 138 yards, as Bama outgained Oklahoma 406 to 212. However, the Tide committed 3 turnovers and a turnover on downs. They couldn't simply keep from shooting themselves in the foot. That's been the thing for the last month. Alabama has played sloppy, soft football to end this season. They had -3 rush yards in the SEC championship against Georgia. Oklahoma has the best defense in the SEC, and it's not particularly close. And Bama simply has to play cleaner football. The coaching, the execution, the preparation, it's all been lackluster to close out the season, and Bama should be extremely appreciative of the committee for looking past their struggles and undeservingly keeping them in the playoffs. The Sooners lead college football in tackles for loss, and Alabama does dumb things when they get behind the sticks. In a rematch, I usually like to lean towards the team that lost the first matchup, but this one could be rough for the Tide. I'm picking Oklahoma to move on and face number 1, Indiana. Number 10, Miami at number 7, Texas A&M. This is the most likely upset, in my opinion. A&M played the weakest schedule of any team in the top 10 and got embarrassed in their rivalry game against Texas to end the season. Marcel Reed threw 2 ugly interceptions in that game, and similarly to Alabama, sloppy line play and the inability to run the football will come back to haunt them. We've seen it time and time again in the playoffs. Whoever wins the line of scrimmage, and more accurately, whoever wins the run game tends to win when it matters. I don't love Miami's offense, but their defensive line has played well since the loss to SMU, including holding a top 25 Pitt team to just 30 yards on 21 carries in the last week of the season. If Miami's defensive line can create pressure, the Canes will win comfortably. Also, as little confidence as I have in Carson Beck to win a big game on the road, he is second in the country in completion percentage at 75%, only behind Julian Sayin. So while he's not an elite QB, Beck is a far more reliable passer than Marcel Reed, and that's what matters here. Number 11, Tulane at number 6, Ole Miss. Another rematch from earlier in the season. Ole Miss won that game 45-10, with Trinidad Chambliss going for 419 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. Jake Retzloff went 5 of 17 passing for a measly 56 yards, as Tulane was thoroughly outmatched. The tough part with analyzing this game, these are 2 completely different teams now. Ole Miss struggled in wins over LSU, Washington State, and Florida. They did get the nice win at Oklahoma, but they lost to Georgia by 8. Simply put, the Rebels played a very easy schedule compared to most of the SEC and split their big games 1-1. Tulane finished their season on a 5-game winning streak, including wins over Memphis and North Texas. UNT, the best offense in the country, Tulane turned them over 5 times en route to an AAC title. The problem has been Tulane's inconsistency on defense and their lack of an elite pass rush. The X factor in this game, Ole Miss doesn't have a coach. Lane Kiffin has gone to LSU, and the impossible has happened. I thought a coach with the team making the playoffs would never leave to go to another school, and at least without finishing out the season, but here we are, right? John Summerall, of course, is leaving to Florida after Tulane is done, but he's completely bought into the Two-Face persona right now. This is really neat. John Summerall's Twitter page has a banner split in half with Florida gear and Florida and Tulane logos. And then his profile picture is a picture of him photoshopped to be half in Florida gear and half in Tulane gear. This is a gutsy team that has surprised me all season long. They're likely being underrated going into this game. Ole Miss, they're 17.5-point favorites, right? But I do feel like that's a little crazy considering how tough the Green Wave have been to beat lately. So give me Ole Miss to win, but Tulane to cover. That's my prediction. And then number 12, James Madison at number 5, Oregon. On Saturday night, we get the most underrated matchup of the first round. Yes, Oregon finished the season strong with convincing victories over USC and Washington, but I watched the offense struggle miserably at times this season. Notably in the second half of the Penn State and Indiana games, and then the Ducks only mustered 21 points against Wisconsin and 18 points against Iowa. And then their 26 points against UW isn't exactly impressive. My point. Oregon has been very inconsistent, which makes sense considering their youth at the skill positions and the overly aggressive nature of the defensive backfield. I know it's impossible to compare these schedules, but some of JMU's numbers are truly dominant. The Dukes are second in the country in total defense, only trailing Ohio State. Oregon lurks only a few spots behind them. JMU is also sixth in the country in rushing, averaging 246 yards per game. James Madison leans on their run game, and despite the lack of talent, their creative RPO system, along with Alonzo Barnett's ridiculous athleticism with his legs, allows JMU to run against anybody. Yes, even Oregon. And what do I say all the time? If you can't stop the run, you can't win the game. Wayne Knight, JMU's star running back, is second in college football in all-purpose yards. Also, Oregon's main weakness is their inability to generate pressure on defense. The Ducks are 78th in sacks, with only 23 this season. JMU is tied for 8th in the country in sacks, racking up 36 of them this season and spreading them out as a team. JMU has 5 guys with 3 or more sacks this season. Oregon only has 2, and they're both linebackers. Simply put, JMU's entire D-line has been productive this season at a rate comparable with the very best in the country. Now, before you go thinking that the Dukes are going to win the Natty, they still haven't faced competition anywhere near the level of Oregon this year. The Dukes' only Power 4 game, they lost to Louisville, although that was early in the season before they figured out their running back situation. Sure, JMU dominated solid teams like ODU and Troy, but they've been similarly inconsistent to Oregon, and they've played a far weaker schedule. Oregon has far more talent. They should win this one. They should be able to dominate physically. But I'll pick JMU just for kicks and giggles, right? I really want to see something from this team because I've seen something for a long time, weeks. I've seen something special in this squad. They have an edge that is rare in college football these days. And I've been advocating for James Madison to get their chance in the playoffs for months. Who knows? Maybe Chesney has some tricks up his sleeve to negate the lack of talent, just like he has all season long. Outside of the playoff games, there's some other bowl games that require some attention. First off is the Myrtle Beach Bowl between Kennesaw State and Western Michigan. The CUSA and MAC champions face off in a morning bowl game. I believe it's at 11 a.m., providing some excitement on Friday before the playoffs even start. Brock Lowry for Western Michigan had 14 rushing TDs this season as a quarterback, along with 7 through the air. His 197 rush attempts is third among quarterbacks this season, so he's a true threat with his legs. However, the big disparity between these two teams is the style of play. Kennesaw State likes to play fast and rely on their offense to score points. Meanwhile, Western Michigan is an elite defensive force. The Owls are 70 yards per game better on offense, but Western Michigan's 15th ranked defense is a whole 100 yards per game better than Kennesaw State. I trust the team that can run the ball, and I trust the team that can control the pace of the game on defense. Give me the Broncos in this one. Also on Friday before the first playoff game is Memphis and NC State in the Gasparilla Bowl. Memphis lost their last 3 games of the season, going from the front runners in the AAC to an 8-4 season and underdogs in their bowl game. NC State has an electric offense, powered by sophomore quarterback C.J. Bailey, who returns home to South Florida to play in Raymond James Stadium. On defense, linebacker Caden Fordham leads the way as Fordham's 130 tackles were the most in the Power 4 this season. The Wolfpack come into this one after wins over Florida State and UNC, and I'm going to pick them to beat Memphis to finish off their season. Finally, next Monday is the Idaho Potato Bowl between 6-6 Washington State and 6-6 Utah State. Utah State just lost to Boise State by 1 in the Mountain West title game, which was in Utah. Now they have to go play at Boise State Stadium on the blue turf for the bowl game. Go figure. Then I got some quick Penn State football updates I want to talk about. Penn State is Iowa State now. Yes, 8-4 in the Big 12 Iowa State. Matt Campbell just announced 10 coaches and staff members that he's bringing over with him, along with others that are just predicted to be coming with him. He's starting to assemble the coaching staff. And yes, it's a lot of Iowa State guys. Bringing Taylor Mauser as the new offense coordinator and tight end coach, replacing Andy Kotelnicki. Ryan Clanton, O-line coach, replacing Coach Troutwine. Deion Broomfield, secondary coach. Jake Waters, QB coach. And bringing staff members Skip Brandebick, Derek Hoodger, Aaron Hillman, Reed Kagi, Brandon Petrick, Trent Slatnow, and Jack Griffith. And then here's one of the main things I want to talk about. It's really important. Penn State bought out Jim Knowles, paying him $9 million to coach 1 season for Penn State, right as his defensive style was beginning to settle in. This is awful in every way possible, right? Not only is it a waste of time and money, but I'm still confident in Jim Knowles as one of the top defensive minds in the country. He immediately got picked up by Tennessee, as they were able to quickly work together a $2 million a year contract for him. Surely, if Penn State was so eager to get rid of Knowles, they must have had someone truly legendary that they were planning to replace him. No. If you thought Penn State had a plan at this point in the coaching searches, you're wrong. Campbell is bringing his DC from Iowa State, John Heacock, with him to Penn State. There's still a possibility that Terry Smith or Anthony Poindexter could be named the DC. I believe Anthony Poindexter is going to be calling the plays defensively in the bowl game against Clemson, just as he did in the bowl game a few years ago against Ole Miss. But here's the thing. John Heacock just simply can't be Penn State's defensive coordinator. He runs a 3-3-5 inverted Tampa 2 defense, better known as the flyover defense. I'll explain what that means here. It helps create versatility against pass-heavy air raid offenses from the Big 12, like those elite Texas Tech and Oklahoma offenses. You can't play quarters in the Big 10. You can't play 3 deep in the Big 10. PSU fans went nuts a couple of years ago when Michigan didn't pass the ball a single time in the second half. My point, John Heacock's defensive style is not fit for Big 10 football. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that you need to be able to have a defense built to stop run-heavy teams from all across the conference. The best running backs, the best offensive lines, the best ground attacks, they're in the Big 10. Every single week in this conference, you have to dominate the trenches. And instead, Penn State's new coaches are going to act like it's the Big 12 and coach like they're playing against spread all the time. So I'm confident in Campbell's ability to help the offense improve and develop better at the skill positions. The new wide receiver coach, Noah Pauley, is replacing Marquez Higgins. I'm really excited to see the Nittany Lions get some elite playmakers on the outside again. Campbell has a strong track record with developing good QBs and running backs as well. And it'll be really interesting. I'll talk about the quarterback situation in just a second, but my main concern when bringing a bunch of Big 12 coaches and players is regression on defense, which fans already complained enough this season when Penn State was still 34th in total defense. If Penn State's not top 10 in defense, that's the expectation for the program. Like, it's a disappointment when Penn State, who's able to recruit elite defensive players from Western PA and around the Eastern Seaboard, Penn State should be top 10 in defense every season. That's how they're recruiting. That's how their coaching staff is built. That's what the fans desire. A lot of Penn State fans want that as kind of a baseboard. There's a lot of Penn State fans that could care less what the offense is doing for the most part, as long as the defense is exciting and dominant. That's the backbone of this team. And hopefully Terry Smith can be the guy to continue to step up and elevate the defensive side of the football and continue the excellence that Penn State is known for. Toughness, physicality, and a QB-hungry defensive line. Penn State is linebacker U. Nobody better ever come into Happy Valley and say that we should run a 3-3-5 defense. That's just sacrilegious. Then it's also expected that Deion Barnes, Trace McSorley, Dan Connor, and maybe a couple of other coaches will stay at Penn State under Matt Campbell. The McSorley one's interesting because I already mentioned that we're bringing the Iowa State QB coach Jake Waters. One of the top things that I talked about a few weeks ago that'll be important this offseason is to keep Ethan Grunkmeyer as your starting quarterback. What he's shown over the past month or two and the way that he's improved has shown me that he will be one of the top quarterbacks in the country next season. Of course, you lose Coach O'Brien to Virginia Tech, but you bring in Coach Waters, you keep McSorley around, and you bring in Coach Campbell, who's got a strong track record of having good quarterbacks at Iowa State. It's one of those things where if I'm Ethan Grunkmeyer and these coaches can show me that they have a plan for my development, I think there's a lot of good reason to be bought into that, right? And I think that if they make Grunkmeyer priority like he should be, that could work out really well for Penn State because Ethan Grunkmeyer will be one of the top quarterbacks in the country if he stays at Penn State next season. He's got some strong weapons available, always a good offensive line here at Penn State. And it's one of those things where it's clear Ethan Grunkmeyer is a winning player. He's a dog. He's got that edge to him, that gritty mentality that I don't want to say we didn't see out of Drew Allar, but it feels refreshing to have a quarterback out there for Penn State that knows what it takes to win, and he's willing to put his shoulder down, take some hits, and make the plays necessary to win close games. I'm all in on Ethan Grunkmeyer. I think if you told me any QB out there in the transfer portal right now, which it's a stacked transfer portal for quarterbacks this year, if you told me any of those guys would be coming to Penn State, I'd be disappointed because Grunkmeyer is better than every single one of them. And he's a better fit for Penn State than every single one of them. So that's so crucial over the next couple weeks, months, whatever, to keep Ethan Grunkmeyer in State College and to keep developing him as the starting quarterback at Penn State. Then PSU, they've already gotten a few new commitments from former Iowa State recruits. All of them are 3 stars. One of them is the top punter in the class, which is interesting, getting a strong special teams player. However, there is some buzz among recruiting analysts and journalists that Penn State is trending for some higher profile recruits in the near future. So that'll just be something to pay attention to. If players like Matt Campbell and recruits want to play for him, we'll see how that translates in terms of building the roster for next season because, yeah, Penn State's losing a lot of talent to the NFL, to graduation, whatever. They're going to need some new recruits. Obviously, this recruiting class is very thin. It's got like 6 guys in there right now. And we're going to have to hit the transfer portal hard. And so that's one thing that Campbell is going to be really busy on and the rest of the coaching staff is going to be really busy on over the next few months is filling out the roster and finding guys that can start. Top 25 guys on the team that you can rely on to play top 10 Big Ten football next season because there will be several transfers in the starting lineup for Penn State next season. Now, before I sign off, I just want to talk some Penn State hoops. They had a big loss to Indiana, 113-72 earlier in the week, and then they bounced back with a close loss to Michigan State, 76-72. Penn State was actually winning with a few minutes left in that game. When Penn State is playing fast, when they're playing strong half-court defense and then pushing the ball in transition, more importantly, when they're rebounding well on the defensive glass, they look so good as a team. I mean, they're battling with a top 10 team in the country, one of the top teams in the Big Ten, a potential Final Four team in Michigan State, and they're just battling with them. As soon as they tried to slow down the game at the end, that's when things fell apart. And that's when the offense stopped clicking. That's when they went on that drought to end the game. And Michigan State, they were able to settle down and close things out. And then there was that missed free throw by Freddie Dilion at the end that really sealed it. Freddie played a wonderful game. He was great on both ends of the floor, but missed the defensive rotation there at the end that allowed a tough three, and then missed that free throw on that 1-and-1. So 2 crucial plays at the end of that game that he wasn't able to make, but he played a fantastic game. He's been really special off the bench for Penn State. And it's really crucial that Penn State is able to figure out what's wrong there and improve on that and be able to shake that loss off, because you got a 50-50 game in Hershey against Pitt on Sunday, then NC Central on the 29th. After those 2 games, it's Illinois at the Palestra, Michigan in the BJC, Purdue and Mackey, and UCLA at home. Got to beat Pitt and NC Central, because you got 4 ranked games coming up on the schedule after that. I'd love to see Penn State win at least one of those games. They definitely can. The performance against MSU proves this team's talent and the fact that they can beat anybody if they play their brand of basketball. And so it's one of those things where this Pitt's game is really important, because that's a team that is probably a bubble team, much like Penn State, and it would be an important neutral site win moving into a really tough stretch of the schedule. And these non-conference games are important when evaluating teams later if you're on the bubble. And like I said, if Penn State, if they continue to grow and learn, as it's a young group that has shown a lot of strong chemistry so far, that MSU game showed, even though they lost, it's a lot of promise, and it's a really talented group. They have the ability to win big games. It'll be really nice to see in that 4-game stretch them to pull out one of them, get that signature win, get some momentum early on in the season, because they desperately need it right now. And I think Pitt, like that, a win could be against them could be crucial for this team moving forward. So that's all I got on the show for today. Next week might be a little different of an episode. The videos might be a little different as we move into the playoffs and some Christmas season. I'll think of something. I always do. And I'll keep you guys entertained and up to date on Penn State football and basketball. Thank you all for watching. And as always, go Nittany Lions.